with Skaven?
Let's get into this. We're doing chaos. Oops,
I think
that's death.
I think that Idoneth is one of the strongest armies in the game, but I actually think that Skaven is the strongest army in 4th edition right now.
Tell me more.
I think they have had probably the biggest faction glow up. They had like an afterthought 2.5 battle tome in 3rd edition that was really weird and didn't make a lot of sense. And they gave it some rehab over the course of 3rd, and most of the way they fixed Skaven was just by dropping the points of everything until you could take 3 Screaming Bells and it wasn't a problem. And now they just refined a lot of the stuff. So they just like every faction ability is good. They have unlimited deep strike at the beginning of the game. They ignore the retreat mechanic that is fundamental to the game. You don't have to start the game with all your gnaw holes deployed, which is sweet, because now you can summon them and they're not restricted to the board edge. So you can put them in the middle of the map if you want. It really opens up a lot of your teleporting plays.
Yeah, that's really strong.
And you're probably still going to want to keep a gnaw hole in the back, just like you used to. It doesn't give you the +1 to cast anymore, I think. But it is now like the Loon Shrine, because it's where your replacement units come out of. So you're going to want to keep one gnaw hole safe in your backline territory at all times, and then start growing and expanding your holes on the field. And if you can keep them there, your opponent is like super threatened that a replacement unit can at any time come out of one of them. And they have an ability that lets you move in the enemy hero phase. Normal move, not like a D6 or 3 inches or anything like that.
Well, I think they're probably going to be, like, aren't the launch factions always pretty strong? Except for Krill Boys, I guess.
Yeah, I think they're the one who is in the strong position for the launch box. I think Stormcast are too, honestly, but it seems like this time for the 4th ed launch box, they made both of the factions strong instead of having one of them be the bin army and one of them be the box army.
How about Tzeentch?
Tzeentch look like they have some okay rules, but I'm really not excited about them. The Lord of Change is good. Kairos has an amazing ability. And I don't think that any of the foot demons look like particularly good or strong. So like all of their infantry is not very exciting. They have some fast stuff. They don't really do that much damage. They tried to build more into the kind of like flamer identity of Tzeentch, I think.
Yeah, we'll see how strong that ability is. We'll see. I feel like it might be like more annoying than it looks.
It might be, yeah. It's just like, I think that it's just a straight up worse version of Nurgle's rules. Like the
Nurgle looked pretty strong to me.
Yeah, it's like instead of having to roll for the warp flame to go away at the end of every turn, you just like gain the diseased keyword and you keep it forever until you try to heal. And not everything can heal. Like your opponent, I guess, could spend a command point to rally to heal to get rid of the disease keyword, but that's like a big tax, you know?
What kind of lists do you think we'll see from Tzeentch?
I don't know, because I'm not sure what I think is... I need to... I think the lists are going to probably be like Kairos, 1 or 2 other heroes, and then a bunch of horrors, maybe? But that's just kind of where my gut takes me, is that you want to take a high wound count army and a bunch of good wizards and then keep the wizards safe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because the Lords of Change are really good. You do have good spell lore. You do have good manifestations. But none of the war scrolls for the like stuff you can build into as like, oh, I'm going to take this huge unit of Exalted Flamers, or I'm going to take this huge unit of Screamers, or you know, horrors. None of that stuff looks particularly strong. So I imagine you just want to take whatever is the most efficient thing, wounds and movement wise, that's going to help you do battle tactics and stuff, and then you're mostly just going to take whatever the best wizards are in that list.
How about Nurgle?
Nurgle, I think's probably going to be an A tier army. I think they're really strong. Mortal damage being more rare makes make them have kind of a premium because they have so much of it and it's so distributed and regular. Like dealing 1 every round to every diseased unit or every turn to every diseased unit is really good. And cutting healing is strong as well.
It can be, for sure. There's going to be armies that really like it or that need it, and to shut it off is going to feel powerful.
And I don't think it's going to be that hard to put the diseased keyword on things either.
No.
Apparently, one of the things that the warband does, the mortals that have the shooting pipes, is that if they inflict damage to something with their shooting, they get diseased. Or if they hit them, they get diseased or something like that. So you're going to have a unit that is a little bit faster than your 4-inch move foot guys that can shoot at a unit to give it diseased, and then you have spells to give disease. And the Great Unclean ones look really good. I think they all around look like a really strong, tanky debuff army. And they will be really hard to move off of circles, and they will stick you in combat and never let you leave. Because you won't be able to kill them. If you get stuck in combat with Nurgle units, you will not get out unless you retreat and take mortal damage. Because they're not going to die.
Nope.
And they're going to give you -1 to hit, and -1 to wound, and maybe -1 attacks, and they're going to disease you so you don't heal.
Even just 2 of those bloat flies are so hard to kill.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you can kill 1 a turn. It's gross.
And they have pretty decent wizards, honestly. I think of the Chaos armies, they probably have, or the 4 main Chaos gods, they probably have the 2nd best wizards. Yeah. Right under Tzeentch. And they have that little priest guy. He looks kind of useful. He does control score shenanigans stuff. He can probably help you steal score back in a turn, maybe swing the game, deny battle tactics, something cool like that. So,
Slaves to Darkness.
I'm so scared about this faction.
Yeah,
because I think, and this is what was making me kind of think of the balance problems earlier. Because I'm just trying to think like, what do you think a fair price for 5 Chaos Knights is in terms of points?
Oh, I have no idea. I haven't is there worse? Like, where's their war scroll? Because I haven't actually seen them.
Let me just
super close.
Yeah, let me just send it to you. It's in the faction
Chaos
preview.
Knights. Yeah, here I got it right here.
Yeah.
Okay, 3-up save is good. 10-inch move is quite good for like cavalry. 4 health is quite a bit of health.
Just gained a wound. No reason.
Yeah, 4 health is a lot of health. Curse Lance, 3 attacks, 3s and 3s, 1/1, charge +1, whatever. Okay, 2 attacks, 5s and 3s. Okay, whatever. Some companion nonsense.
Musician and standard bearer.
If this unit charges turn for the rest of the turn, add to the Rend characteristic. So it's going to get +1 Rend, +1 damage. So it's like 15 attacks, 3s and 3s, 2, 3, 2, 2.
So here's the other thing. Yeah,
4
but here's
wounds
the
on
other
a 3-up
thing.
save. Like,
here's the other thing to consider.
Yeah, tell me more.
So the Demon Prince War Scroll. Ruinous Favor in your hero phase. You can do this with all of your... Notice it's not your hero phase army. So you can have multiple Demon Princes do this. Pick a non-friendly or friendly non-unique unit wholly within 12 that shares a Mark of Chaos. Roll a die on a 3+. It can immediately use the Eye of the Gods ability as if it were the end of the turn and they had destroyed an enemy unit. So your Demon Princes let you auto-roll on the slot machine table in your faction to get buffs.
Okay.
For the knights.
So you just get to pick the best buff.
And yeah, and they stack. They last for the entire battle, and you can take each multiple times.
They last for the battle?
Yeah. So if you roll a 1 on the table, no effect. If you roll a 2, yeah, it's gross. They can get +1 to hit.
God.
They can get a 5-up ward. They can add 1 to their rend for the rest of the battle.
For the battle.
Yeah. So they can get infinitely stacking rend, a 5-up ward, +1 to hit, and they can heal off of this table. So they can be, with 10 knights, you can have 40 wounds, a 3-up save, 10-inch move.
Oh, that's got to get the army keyword on that.
Yeah.
Once per... That's got to be the army keyword. It can't be multiple times a turn.
But here's the other thing.
And if you do it on the same... Like, there's no... You can't do it on the same unit, though.
Can't you?
Well, because isn't that the rule of 1? Essentially, it's like that's just a built-in rule. It's like a unit can't be the target of an ability that like more than once.
Maybe so. They're coming from different units, so I'm not sure. But like, you're probably just going to take 2 units of Chaos Knights. I don't think that you want to use it on them more than once. But
still, no. Even if you have to do it on different units, it's still crazy good.
Because you get to do it on turn 1 with it, and you're also rolling on this table when you destroy units.
Yeah, but then you're like, okay, so this one over here, this one's going to be like more defensive or whatever, and they're going to get the 5-up ward. And then these guys, I'm going to hold them back, and I'm going to give them +1 to hit. And then on my next turn, it's like I'm going to give the other ones a 5-up ward that I didn't. Right? And it's like, and then these, it's like, oh my god, like that's so good.
And then as soon as they're strong enough to start destroying units, especially if your opponent's throwing screens out in front of you, they can start getting more than one of those buffs per turn.
Yeah.
And so they can end up having like Rend 5, Damage 2, +1 attack on the charge for Khorne Mark, by the way. So they're actually going to be 40 attacks, 2s and 3s. I think they can get +1 to wound from some faction thing or maybe a spell. But if not, 2s and 3s is still a pretty acceptable profile with like functionally infinite rend and 2 damage with 40 attacks. So they're going to put out like roughly 60 damage against any target that they charge.
Awesome profile. What does the standard bearer do again?
I believe...
Is it control?
Yes, you add 1 to the control score if you have a standard bearer, and I believe that musician is
a rally die.
It's roll 2 dice, choose the highest for rally, or is it just add a rally die?
Add a rally die. Because I think that when you roll, how many rally dice do you start with when you roll for the ability?
You just roll a d6 when you rally. And you get rally points equal to the result, and then you can spend those to heal or return models.
I thought it was different. I'll have to check it out later. But, well, then I can't remember what it does. What you said probably sounds more reasonable if that's what it is.
If they get a second full die, then you're going to get full models of Chaos Knights coming back. I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway. Cool. Yeah. How much? So your question was.
So what do you think is a fair cost for 5 of these guys?
Okay, so if I'm using my 3rd edition point evaluation brain here, right? I look at these and I think like, well, what do I compare it to? Well, it's probably like I think about fulminators. Is how I would think about them, but I'm like, well, these are better than fulminators, though. I think.
Yes.
Because they have 1 fewer wound than fulminators. And I think fulminators also have a 3-up save.
They do, yeah.
So it's like, fulminators are what, 240?
I think so. Yeah.
So I'd value these sort of like at least in that ballpark. And fulminators come in at unit of 2, right?
They do, yeah.
So these guys are a unit of 5 that
20 wounds.
That have a champion.
Yeah.
Right? So that's 1 more attack, which fulminators don't get.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're elite.
Right? Which is, a little bit of something. And there's
a difference.
And there's 5 of them, and then they have these other musician standard bearer things. I don't know, like 280, 300.
We're in almost exactly the same spot. My number is 300. I think if these don't cost at least 300 points for 5, that we're in for a very skewed format for a little while.
So yeah, whatever that means in there, which is kind of a bummer. Getting a unit that really is super awesome can kind of be a curse.
Yes.
Right? It's like, oh no, and then they just made this thing way too expensive, and then nobody played it at the end.
Yeah,
it was just like broken. Done.
They either make it too expensive and nobody plays it because that's how they fixed the balance, or they make counters cheaper and then the meta gets skewed in a different direction because people are playing them for other reasons.
Or just give that unit, or it's just that rule has to change.
Change the war scroll. They have to errata this war scroll.
And I think instead, all they have to do is say that it's, how you said that you can do it with multiple heroes. If you just limit it and change the keyword on the war scroll to army, then you can just do it once. If you could only do it one time on like one time, like one buff or whatever, then I think it'd probably be fine.
I think you could probably balance them better if that was the case. I think that Chaos Knights also need to go down to 3 health. I think it's crazy that this is a 4 health unit.
What are Gore Gruntas?
I don't know. Are they?
I don't know. I haven't seen the new ones.
I haven't seen the Gorgrunta War Scroll, actually.
They were 5 anyway.
But I mean, like...
Fulminators were 6 health, I think.
Hold on. Here's a good point of comparison for, like, a roughly similar sized unit in the world. Blood Knights. Yeah, Blood Knights are 3 health, 3 up save. Right. Like, why are Chaos Knights tankier than an Immortal Vampire?
Regardless, I think these things are going to be scary.
So scary.
Yeah, just like regardless, like they're going to be, which is cool. Like good for them.
Yeah, and they have Be'lakor too. I mean, it's going to be a strong faction, and it'll probably be cool to play.
Yeah, I really like. I like the aesthetic of Slaves to Darkness. I also really like the aesthetic of Khorne. What do you think about Khorne?
I think that Khorne looks like a blast to play.
They really do.
Look really cool. I'm so happy that the Bloodthirsters are terrifying, because they truly are. If I were to play Khorne, I would probably try to play a list with a bunch of Bloodthirsters, because it just looks like a really good time. But the other builds also look really good. And I think the Bloodthirster build might be stronger now. Like, his hit and wound profile is sick, and the Boomthirster can really kill stuff. Being Ren 3 against infantry with a 5 damage weapon with that many attacks on like 2s and 3s or like 2s and 2s is crazy. And their rampages are all good. I really like the... Is it Unfettered? No, it's not Unfettered Fury. It's the one with the whip. He has a rampage where he can like provoke someone else in combat into only attacking him.
Right.
And force them to pile in towards him, so he can force the other unit to choose him as the target of his pile-in move, which is such a unique ability. I think that's really awesome. Because you're controlling your opponent's movement, which is a thing that like Khorne is supposed to kind of be doing. Yeah, thematically cool army. I love their playstyle. I bet the other stuff with mortals and stuff will be really strong and interesting too. But yeah, positive on Khorne. Looked awesome.
Hedonites of Slaanesh.
I'm sorry about what I said about Sylvaneth earlier. They are the worst army in the game now.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing, right? Like, well, this is what, have you seen anything else? Like, have you seen a lot of this army?
I have not seen a lot of War Scrolls.
Is there any hope for them? Like, what, like, if they had, like, some sick War Scrolls, would they...
So maybe, but the problem with that is that it's going to be entirely carried by the War Scrolls, because Hedonites of Slaanesh are a vanilla creature in Magic the Gathering. You don't have battle traits. It's like a blank sheet of paper. They just don't exist. Excess of Depravity is one of, I think, the worst written abilities that I've seen. Like, you can give 3 of your units Euphoric, and then your opponent only gets punished on a 1 or a 2, and their punishment is only D3 mortal damage if they get punished. And they can now use temptation dice to auto complete 12-inch charges.
Yeah, that's great. Let me do that.
I'm never giving my opponent the opportunity to auto complete a 12-inch charge to maybe do D3 mortal wounds to them and then unlock like crit 2 hits and run shoot charge. That's not a big enough payoff. Like, it's just not I feel so bad for Slaanesh players because it's such a cool army, and I feel like they're going to have to be completely carried by their sub-factions and how good the scrolls are. They showed Keeper of Secrets on that Hellstorm stream as part of the weeks, and the Keeper looks okay. It has a replacement units ability now. It's a locus of Slaanesh, so it can just like roll to bring back Slaanesh units that have been destroyed. I guess that's cool.
That's super cool.
It's good for the army. They needed that. But I don't know. I think that if the army's good, it will be entirely carried by the War Scrolls and the sub factions, because the the faction abilities are doo-doo bad.
Well,
Yeah.
here's to them. You said you had like a final thought thing about list building that you wanted to mention?
Yeah, it's just that idea about spam lists and about playing around being the underdog. I think the idea that there's going to be some advantage to just like trying to get 1 point beneath your opponent in the first turn, to get that extra command point so that you can swing it back later, is an appealing thought to me for how to play the game. And I think that it might be strong.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. We've been
it was a lot of
going
fun.
almost 3 hours, yeah.
Jeez, yeah, we've been talking a while.
You know, people say that there's too much, like, oh, like, you guys, like, are so ahead on spoilers, right? Like, the new, like, oh, you jump into it right away, right? Like, oh, I like to wait until the game's completely out or whatever, right? Like, I hear that sometimes from players. And then I always think that there's just so much information to consume. Yeah. Right? There's so much information that I almost like to sort of digest it sort of slowly.
Yeah, I gotta start chewing early, or I'm not gonna be able to digest it at all, right? I'm gonna swallow it whole.
Well, people forget that you have to also learn everyone else's rules too. Yeah. You know, that's the thing. You have to know all the armies and what they do. That's how you win games. Is you're like, oh right, you are fire slayers, and so I have to like bait you into using your things on the wrong turns.
Yeah, I have to make you pop that once per battle 5-up ward in a spot where you think you need it, but you don't. Yeah.
Right? And so what does that look like? I need to scare you. Right? Yep. So like a little porcupine. It's a great ability. Right? That's how you win games. Also, one point that I wanted to make, I'm not sure if I made it yet. Correct me if I've said this, but I think that 4th edition is really going to come down to denying your opponent's tactics.
Yeah.
Right?
I totally agree.
There's a short list of tactics. How many are there for each, like for a player? 7? Or is it 8?
Yeah, I think it's 5 generic ones and then 2 Grand Alliance.
So there's only 7, and you have to complete 5 of them. If I can if 2 are kind of like mediocre for you and then I can deny 1, you're sort of screwed. And there's so much counterplay, counter shoot, counter charge, counter cast, counter move, right? It's like I said before about like pinning somebody in their thing so they can't get surrounded and destroy.
And now a lot of factions have abilities that work on your opponent's turn as well. You know, like a lot of the faction rewrites gave people tools for playing on your opponent's turn. So everybody gets to play a little bit of blue in 4th edition. Everybody's playing a blue deck splashed with something else, it seems.
So it's going to be interesting. Like I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yep. Okay, man. Thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Like, subscribe. Wow.